Thanks, that's great. Thank you, Samia, so much for inviting me to speak to you today. And thank you to the Center for Literary Translation for 10 years of interesting, provocative, and enjoyable lectures, and many other activities. Dennis Johnson Davies, whose spirit, I hope, hovers benignly over this occasion. In fact, I'm sure that it does, having been invoked specifically by Samia at the beginning, was the first person to make a concerted effort to introduce Arabic literature to English readers. And let me say here that faced by this wide field of translation, as we have had it laid out for us so skillfully tonight, I'm going to restrict myself to literary translation from Arabic into English, which is the furrow that I personally plow in that big field. Dennis had at least one notable success, commercially speaking. The publication of his translation of Tayyib Saleh's Season of Migration to the North, which a few years ago found a place in the Penguin Classics series. All the same, Dennis never ceased to emphasize the extreme efforts he had to go to interest English language publishers in Arabic literature. The short lifespan of series intended to raise the profile of Arabic literature, or the failure of most of what he translated to reach a large audience. Even 15 years ago, some 55 years after Dennis made his first translation, I vividly remember the dampening effect it had on me when Mark Lintz, then director of the AUC Press, told me and a colleague that he hoped we didn't expect to make a living out of this. Though a degree of professional self-interest may have lain behind his remark, it echoed the generally pessimistic outlook of the time regarding the viability from a publisher's perspective of Arabic novels in translation. Today, I believe, the position of literary translation from Arabic into English is fundamentally stronger, and the quality and importance of Arabic literature much more widely recognized in the English-speaking world. Here I should emphasize also that I speak only really of translation from English into Arabic. I do not know much about the situation of translation from Arabic into French or German or Italian, though I think that things probably go even better there. Let me cite just one indicator of the improvement in the position of Arabic literature translated into English since Dennis's time. The most recent list of works in the World Bookshelf, published and supported financially by PEN UK, the British arm of the Worldwide Writers Association, contained 24 books, of which 4 were translations from Arabic. Only Spanish scored an equal number, and other languages were represented by smaller numbers. Obviously, it is too early to say adieu to French literature or sayonara to Japanese as players in the English book market, and it may have been a bit of a blip. Nonetheless, such strong representation of Arabic writing in translation on a prestigious list from an organization at the heart of the English literary world would have been unthinkable even a decade ago. The causes behind this upsurge are multiple and complex, and I do not want to get into them in this brief presentation. For now, let me just note a few milestones along the road. Obviously, Naguib Mahfouz being awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1981 is one, though it wasn't followed up by much further exposure. More significant, in my opinion, in terms of opening a new audience for Arabic literature, was its first true crossover popular success, Ala al-Aswani's Yaqubian Building, which, for the first time, saw an Arabic novel sell tens of thousands of copies in English. The same period saw the establishment of Banipal magazine, the first English-language magazine devoted to publishing excerpts from modern Arabic and promoting Arabic literature in English in general. A plethora of e-zines and blogs, some dedicated primarily to literature, some general, now exist that present Arabic literature, Arabic writing, either alone or alongside translations from other languages. Arab Lit Cooperative, Words Without Borders, Jadaliya, The Common, Arab Hyphen, etc. Literary prizes, some of large monetary value, have joined the veteran AUC's Naguib Mahfouz Prize, awarded since 1996. Of these, the most famous is the International Prize for Arab Fiction, commonly referred to as the Arab Booker. Though the influence of book prizes on literary production in Arabic is considered by some to be negative, they have undoubtedly helped to raise the profile of the winning books, which are frequently thereafter translated. Importantly, too, I think, this increased presence of Arabic literature in the English language book market has been expanded since 2013 to include pre-modern works. The Library of Arabic Literature, a series of dual Arabic-English texts with translations, now carries some 25 titles, ranging from pre-Islamic poetry to Muhammad al-Muwalhi. It is now possible to walk into a bookstore in London and find a bookshelf full of Arabic classics with the translation alongside the original text, produced to a high standard in both literary and technical terms and aimed at the non-specialist reader. I do not want to paint an absolutely rosy picture. More Arabic works have been shortlisted than have actually won prizes, though being on a shortlist is itself a distinction and should result in increased attention and sales. Not all titles, even critically acclaimed ones, pay enough to cover publishers' costs. Often such works are carried by other assets in the publisher's lists. However, that is also true of difficult works from other languages. There is also a paradox. In this age of discursive overkill, statements such as translation is the key cultural artifact of our age are bandied about, and this, of course, is inspiring for us translators. However, rates paid for translation from any language remain low. Dr. Maurice has pointed out the situation here in Egypt. I can assure him that it isn't that much better elsewhere. I can think of at least a dozen, despite this, one more factor in the improved reception of Arabic literature is the greater number of competent translators, many of whom are young. I can think of at least a dozen, whereas 20 years ago, one would have been hard-pressed to think of more than one. That one being, of course, Dennis Johnson Davies. The expansion and improvement of Arabic teaching in major universities around the world, including AUC's Center for the Study of Arabic Abroad, has certainly played a role in this. This brings us more or less up to 2019, and a very satisfactory year it has been so far from this perspective. In May, Marilyn Booth's translation of Juha al-Harth's Celestial Bodies won the International Booker Prize. The first time that an Arabic novel has won a major prize in competition with works from other literatures in English translation. In addition, Larry Price's translation of Khalid Khalifa's Death is Hard Work was one of the 4 finalists for the USA's National Book Award in the translation category. Though her translation of Khalid Khalifa's Death is Hard Work did not win, this constitutes another significant moment. given the high prestige and profile of the prize, which has been described as the Oscars of Arabic literature, of American literature. وهنا بعتذر للناس اللي بيتابعوا الترجمة العربية علشان أما كتبت الترجمة ده كان من كم شهر وكنت لسه متعشم إني لاري هتاخد الجايزة بس ما حصلش معلش هي برضو إنجاز وإنجاز كبير. All of this amounts perhaps to saying no more than that Arabic literature has gained a toehold in the English book market. But that toehold is significant. It means that the existence of a thriving modern Arabic literature is recognized outside the academy, that literature is afforded respect, and that it is read outside of its home territory. And that is something new and something to celebrate. Thank you very much.